Captain Zektar rubbed his tired eyes as he guided his trading ship through the empty space between star systems. He had been flying cargo routes for 20 years, and the long journeys gave him plenty of time to listen to stories from other traders and travelers. Tonight, like many nights before, the conversation in the ship's common area had turned to the old legends about humans. "I'm telling you, they were real," insisted Pilot Nexio, a gray-skinned Valdrin who claimed his grandfather had seen actual human artifacts. "My family kept records going back 800 years. There are descriptions of creatures that walked on 2 legs, had no fur or scales, and could eat almost anything." Zektar shook his head. "Come on, Nexio. Expect me to believe there was a species that could survive on planets without breathing masks, that could run for days without stopping? That's impossible." But Nexio was not finished. "The stories say they had strange names for everything. They called their homeworld Earth and their star soul. They built cities on planets that would kill us in minutes. Hot worlds, cold worlds, worlds with poisonous air. And somehow they thrived on all of them." In the corner of the room, an old Zenthari merchant named Clickstar looked up from his drink. His species was known for keeping detailed records of everything they encountered in their travels. "The humans were more than just tough," he said in his whispering voice. "They were dangerous, not because they were cruel, but because they never gave up, ever." The room grew quiet. Clickstar rarely spoke, but when he did, others listened. "My people have stories too," the old merchant continued. "Stories about a species that would form bonds with complete strangers. They called it friendship, and they would die for these friends without hesitation. They had a saying, 'No one gets left behind.' Imagine that. A species that would risk everything for others, even people they barely knew." Zektar felt a chill run down his spine. "That sounds like madness." "Maybe," said Clickstar, "but it made them incredibly powerful. A human army wasn't just individual soldiers. It was a single organism with thousands of parts, all working together perfectly. They shared knowledge, resources, even their lives with each other." Pilot Nexio leaned forward. "What happened to them? Where did they go?" Clickstar was quiet for a long moment. "The records say they just ... left, all at once. Every human colony, every outpost, every ship, they packed up and flew away into deep space. That was about 3,000 years ago." "Why would they leave?" asked Zektar. "No one knows," Clickstar replied. "But some of the old records suggest they weren't running away. They were going somewhere, somewhere far beyond our galaxy." The conversation was interrupted by a sharp beeping. From the ship's communication system, Zektar hurried to the bridge to answer the incoming message. It was from his contact at the Kepler mining station, a massive operation that employed thousands of Vorthane workers. "Zektar, thank the stars you answered," came the panicked voice of his friend Thulvik, the station commander. "We need emergency transport ships, all of them, right now. What's wrong? Are you under attack?" "No, not attack. We're evacuating." "Everyone, the whole station," Zektar was confused. "Evacuating? Why? What happened?" Thulvik's voice dropped to a whisper. "We got a message. It's coordinates and a departure schedule. Nothing else." But Zektar, everyone who saw that message had the same reaction. Pure terror. Like something deep in our minds recognized a threat. "We couldn't understand. It doesn't make sense," Zektar protested. "Who sent the message? Unknown origin. But the format. It matches the old human communication protocols in our historical database. The ones we thought were fake." The line went quiet for several seconds. When Thulvik spoke again, his voice was shaking. "Zektar, what if the humans aren't legends? What if they're real and they're coming back?" Zektar disconnected the call and stood in his bridge staring out at the stars. Round the galaxy, similar conversations were happening on thousands of ships and stations. Stories that had been dismissed as myths were suddenly being remembered in new ways. On the capital world of the hegemony, Commander Yilthok was reviewing reports of strange evacuations across 17 different sectors. Entire colonies were packing up and leaving based on anonymous messages. The pattern made no sense. until her research team discovered that every evacuated world matched coordinates from ancient human colonial records. Dr. Nexwola, the galaxy's leading expert on extinct species, was working late in her laboratory when her assistant burst through the door with a data pad. "Doctor, you need to see this. We've been analyzing the evacuation patterns, and we found something incredible." The data showed a clear progression. The evacuations were happening in a specific order, following the same routes that ancient human colonies had used thousands of years ago. It was as if someone was systematically reclaiming old territory. "It's like they're coming home," whispered her assistant. Dr. Nexwola felt her scales tingle with fear and excitement. "Get me all the human research files. Everything. The real ones, not the public versions." As her assistant hurried away, Dr. Nexwola stared at the star maps on her wall. For 3,000 years, the galaxy had built its civilizations on the UA, ruins of human colonies. They had used human technology, lived on human worlds, and followed human trade routes. But they had convinced themselves that humans were just stories. Now, something was moving in the darkness between stars. Something that knew exactly where every human colony had been. Something that was systematically working its way back home. In the deepest archives of the ancient keeper species, automated systems began activating protocols that had been dormant for millennia. Emergency procedures designed for something called human contact events. Military assessments that classified humans as the most dangerous species ever encountered. And most terrifying of all, evacuation plans for the entire galactic core. The keepers had known all along. Humans weren't legends. They were the landlords, and they were coming back to collect their rent. Across the galaxy, beings who had never given humans a second thought suddenly found themselves checking star charts and emergency supplies. The age of human legends was ending. The age of human reality was about to begin. The rescue ships arrived at Kepler Mining Station 3 days after the last transmission. Captain Vexdeath of the Hegemony Defense Force expected to find wreckage, bodies, or signs of battle. Instead, he found something much more disturbing. The station was completely intact. Every system was running perfectly. The lights were on, the air was clean, and the artificial gravity worked normally. But every single person was gone. "Sir, this is impossible," reported Lieutenant Krixma as she reviewed the security footage. "Look at this." The Vorthines didn't run away in panic. They packed their belongings carefully. They shut down non-essential systems, even left notes for whoever found the station. Vexdeath watched the recordings with growing unease. Thousands of Vorthan miners and their families moved through the station corridors like they were following a detailed evacuation plan, but their faces showed pure terror. These weren't people leaving home for a new job. These were people running from something that scared them more than death itself. "What does the final log say?" he asked. Lieutenant Krixma played the recording. Station Commander Thulvik appeared on screen, his usual calm demeanor completely gone. His eyes were wide with fear, and his hands shook as he spoke. "Day 1012 of mining operations. We received the message 12 hours ago. Just coordinates and a schedule. Nothing else. But somehow, everyone who saw it knew what it meant. We have to leave. We have to leave now. They're coming back home. They're coming back home.
Sure.
Coming back home." The recording repeated those same words over and over for 10 minutes before cutting off. Captain Vexdeath felt his stomach turn cold. "Have we identified who sent the message?" "No, sir. The transmission came from empty space. No ship signatures, no energy readings. It's like the message appeared from nowhere." Similar reports were flooding in from across the galaxy. The Zenthari colony on Rigel 7 had packed up overnight, leaving behind a thriving city that had taken 50 years to build. The crystal farmers on Vega Prime abandoned their installations so quickly they left meals half-eaten on tables. The manufacturing centers in the outer rim went silent, their workers vanishing like morning mist. But the most disturbing reports came from the independent traders and explorers. Captain Yexenal of the cargo hauler Swift Prophet was delivering supplies to a remote research station when he found it empty. But unlike the other evacuations, this one had left behind something new. "They left a message for us," Yexenal reported. "To Galactic Control, It's written in 17 different languages on the main corridor wall. It says property of Seoul Colonial Administration. Current occupants have been relocated to suitable alternative housing. Rental agreements available upon request. Contact local human representative for details. The message was signed with a symbol no one recognized, but somehow everyone understood. Simple circle with two curved lines that looked almost like a smile. Within 2 weeks, the evacuations had spread to over 100 worlds. The pattern was always the same. Anonymous messages with coordinates and departure times. Instant, overwhelming terror from anyone who saw the messages. Orderly evacuations carried out by beings who looked like they were fleeing from ghosts. Galactic Council called an emergency session. Representatives from 12 major species gathered in the Great Assembly Hall on the neutral world of Haven Prime. The debate was loud and confused, with everyone talking at once and no one providing answers. Ambassador Clickstar of the Hegemony demanded military action. We're facing an unknown enemy that can cause mass evacuations across multiple sectors. We need to mobilize our fleets and find these terrorists. The Zenthari delegate disagreed. Oh, this isn't terrorism. Terrorists want to hurt people or destroy things. These evacuations have been completely peaceful. No one has been harmed. Property has been left intact. It's more like ... Eviction notices. Eviction notices. Ambassador Clickstar laughed bitterly. Eviction from whom? Who has the authority to evict entire colonies from their own worlds? That's when First Speaker Zundel of the Ancient Keepers rose from her ceremonial seat. The hall fell silent. Keepers were the oldest known civilization in the galaxy, and their knowledge went back longer than any other species recorded history. The rightful owners? She said simply. The implications hit the assembled delegates like a physical blow. Ambassador Clickstar turned pale. You can't mean humans, First Speaker Zundel confirmed. They are real. They have always been real, and now they are coming home. The hall erupted in chaos. The delegates shouted questions and demands, but First Speaker Zundel raised her ancient hand for silence. 1,000 years ago, this galaxy was full of human colonies. Every world you call home, every trade route you use, every piece of technology you depend on was built by humans, or built on human foundations. When they left, we thought they were gone forever. We convinced ourselves they were myths and legends, so we could sleep peacefully in their beds. She gestured to the great star map that dominated the hall. But humans don't abandon their homes. They go exploring, but they always come back. And when they return, they expect to find their property well maintained. Admiral Vorthok of the Combined Defense Fleet tried to maintain order as panic spread through the chamber. Even if humans exist, we outnumber them by millions. Our military technology has advanced for thousands of years, while they've been lost in space. First Speaker Zundel's laugh was dry and humorless. Lost, child, you built your entire civilization. Using the abandoned ruins of their colonial infrastructure? You think they were lost? They were learning. She activated the hall's main display system, showing images from the deepest Keeper archives. Ancient documents, technical specifications, and military assessments that had been sealed for millennia. We kept the real records, she continued. We know what humans are capable of. When they left, they weren't running away from anything. They were going to explore beyond our galaxy. They were expanding into territories we cannot even imagine. Display showed star charts extending far beyond the galactic rim, trade routes connecting to other galaxies, communication relays stretching across impossible distances. For 3,000 years, you thought you were the masters of this galaxy, but you were just house-sitting. The owners went on vacation, and now they're coming back. Dr. Nexula, who had spent her career studying human legends, stood up from her seat. What do they want? Are they hostile? First Speaker Zundel smiled sadly. They want their homes back. As for hostile, that depends on how reasonable you are about moving out. She paused, letting the implications sink in. The evacuations are warnings, polite notices that the lease is up. The humans are giving current residents time to find new places to live before they return to reclaim their property. Ambassador, Clickstar's voice was barely a whisper. And if we refuse to leave, first speaker Zundel's ancient eyes grew dark. Then you will discover why the Keepers classified humans as a Category 10 extinction threat. The highest danger rating in our military assessment system, classification we have never used for any other species in recorded history. Why the hall fell completely silent. Outside the great windows, the stars seemed suddenly less friendly and more like the eyes of sleeping giants about to wake up. Somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, humanity was coming home, and the galaxy was about to learn the difference between legend and reality. The first human ship appeared exactly at noon, Galactic Standard Time, in the Alpha Centauri system. Every major power in the galaxy had fleets waiting there, expecting either a massive invasion force or a small group of primitive refugees. What they got was something completely different. The ship was enormous, roughly the size of a small moon, but it moved with impossible grace through space. Its hull was dark as midnight, covered in patterns that seemed to shift and change when one was looking directly at them. It didn't look like any known ship design. It looked like it had been grown rather than built. Admiral Crixtal of the Hegemony First Fleet was the senior officer in charge of the combined alien response. He had 15 different species represented in his fleet, with over 8,000 warships total. Surely that would be enough to handle a single vessel, no matter how large. Unknown ship. This is Admiral Crixtal of the Galactic Defense Force. You are entering restricted space. Identify yourself immediately and prepare to be boarded for inspection. The response came back almost instantly, transmitted on frequencies that shouldn't have been able to reach across interstellar distances. The voice was calm, friendly, and speaking perfect galactic standard, with just a hint of an accent no one could identify. Hello there, Admiral. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human exploration vessel, New Horizon. We appreciate the welcoming committee, but we're not really entering restricted space. We're coming home. Admiral Crixtal felt his confidence waver. The human voice was so casual, so relaxed. It's like someone greeting old friends at a party instead of facing down the largest military fleet in galactic history. This space is under the protection of the Galactic Defense Force. You have no legal claim to this system. There was a pause, then what sounded like human laughter. Legal claim. Oh, Admiral, we have something much better than legal claims. We have the original property deeds. The New Horizon began broadcasting on all frequencies simultaneously. Documents. Charts and recordings filled every communication channel in the system. Colonial charters signed by something called the United Earth's Colonial Administration. Terraforming licenses for planets that had been barren rocks before human engineering made them suitable for life. Mining permits for asteroid belts that alien civilizations had been exploiting for centuries. Admiral Crixtal watched in growing horror as his own fleet's computers confirmed the authenticity of the documents. Every world in the Alpha Centauri system had originally been a human colony. Every space station had been built on the foundation of human infrastructure. Every trade route had been established by human merchants. This is impossible, he transmitted back. These documents are thousands of years old. Yep, Captain Morrison replied cheerfully. We're excellent record keepers. Always have been. Hard to run a multi-galactic civilization without good paperwork. Multi-galactic. Admiral Crixtal's voice cracked slightly. Sure, we've been busy while you folks have. Been house-sitting for us. Made lots of new friends, established trade relationships, set up colonies in about 47 different galaxies. It's been a productive 3,000 years. The implications of those words hit every alien commander in the system like a physical blow. Humans hadn't been lost in space. They'd been expanding their civilization beyond anything the galaxy had ever imagined. Dr. Lisa Parker, Expedition's chief diplomat, took over the communication channel. Her voice was warm but professional, like a real estate agent discussing property with potential buyers. Admiral, we understand this is probably shocking news for you and your people. We're not unreasonable. We know you've built civilizations. On our old colony worlds, we're not going to just kick everyone out without warning. Then what do you want? Admiral Crixtal asked. We want to discuss new arrangements. We've been living in our houses, using our infrastructure, mining our asteroids, and farming our planets for 3,000 years. We figure it's time to work out some kind of rental agreement. The communication channel fell silent for several long minutes. Every alien commander in the system was trying to process what they were hearing. The humans weren't conquerors, they were landlords. What if we refuse? Admiral Crystal finally asked. Captain Morrison's voice remained friendly, but there was something new in it. Something that made experienced military officers across a dozen species feel suddenly very cold. Well, Admiral, that would be unfortunate. We're peaceful people, but we do have property rights to consider. And we've learned some interesting things during our travels. Would you like to see? Before Admiral Crystal could respond, the New Horizon did something impossible. It simply vanished from where it had been floating in space and appeared instantly next to the Admiral's flagship. Not jumped through hyperspace, not accelerated at high speed. Just moved from one place to another, as if distance was just a suggestion. Did you do that? Admiral Crystal whispered. Physics is much more flexible than most people realize, Captain Morrison explained. You just have to ask it nicely. We've had 3,000 years to figure out how to ask really, really nicely. The New Horizon began moving through the assembled fleet, not threatening or aggressive, just curious. It flowed between the alien warships like water, occasionally reaching out with appendages that seemed to be made of controlled gravity to gently touch and examine the vessels. Interesting designs, Dr. Parker observed. We can see some of our old colonial technology in your ships. The hegemony destroyers are using modified human fusion drives. The Xanthari cruisers have our old shield generators. Even the weapon systems are based on human engineering principles. She paused, and when she continued, there was genuine warmth in her voice. You've done good work with our old technology. Really impressive adaptations. We're proud of what you've built. Admiral Crystal didn't know how to respond to that. The humans were complimenting his fleet while demonstrating technology that made his most advanced ships look like toys. What happens now? He asked. Now we talk, Captain Morrison said. We'll set up a nice conference room somewhere comfortable. Maybe Luna. That's always been good for negotiations. We'll discuss back rent, property restoration, environmental, clean up for some of the damage that's been done over the years. Standard landlord-tenant stuff. And if we don't agree to your terms? The New Horizon moved again, this time positioning itself directly between the alien fleet and the nearest inhabited planet. The message was clear without being threatening. Admiral, we've been exploring the universe for 3,000 years. We've seen species that make your most advanced civilizations look primitive. We've learned technologies that would seem like magic to you. We've made friends with beings that exist in dimensions you can't even imagine. Captain Morrison's voice became very serious. But we're still human. This is still our home. And we take care of our homes and our neighbors. We'd much rather work things out peacefully. The alien fleet hung in space around the impossible human ship, every commander trying to decide what to do next. Some wanted to fight. Others wanted to run. A few wanted to negotiate. Admiral Crystal made the decision that would define the next age of galactic civilization. Captain Morrison, I think we should talk. Excellent choice, Admiral. Luna it is. We'll have the coffee ready. As the New Horizon prepared to escort the alien fleet to humanity's oldest off-world colony, every being in the system realized that the galaxy had just changed forever. The age of alien expansion was over. The age of human landlords had begun. Admiral Crystal had changed his mind about negotiating by the time his fleet reached the Luna system. 3 days of traveling alongside the human ship had given him time to think, and what he thought was that no species could be as powerful as the humans claimed. They had to be bluffing. This is our chance, he told his fleet commanders during a secret meeting. One ship against 8,000. We can capture their vessel, take their technology, and prove to the galaxy that humans can be defeated. Other commanders were not so sure. Captain Vextorn of the Xanthari battle group had been watching the New Horizon carefully during the journey. Admiral, their ship does things that should be impossible. Maybe we should listen to what they have to say first. Possible technology means impossible power, Admiral Crystal replied. If we can capture even one piece of their equipment, we could change the balance of power in the entire galaxy. Admiral Crixtal was not a stupid being. He was careful and methodical. Waited until the human ship was far from any inhabited worlds before giving the attack order. He spread his fleet in a perfect sphere around the new horizon, with overlapping fields of fire and escape routes blocked. He had quantum torpedoes, plasma cannons, and shield breakers that could destroy planets. Against all of this, the humans had one exploration vessel with a crew that seemed more interested in drinking coffee than preparing for battle. Attention, human vessel. Admiral Crixtal, broadcast on all frequencies. You are completely surrounded. Lower your shields and prepare to be boarded. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick. The response came back almost immediately. Captain. Morrison sounded genuinely surprised and a little disappointed. Admiral, I really thought we were making progress toward a peaceful solution. Are you sure you want to do this? We haven't fought a real war in 3,000 years and we're out of practice. Someone might get hurt. Your surrender is the only acceptable outcome, Admiral Crixtal replied. You have 30 seconds to comply. There was a pause, then Captain. Morrison's voice returned, sounding resigned. Well, if you insist, Ben, give them the standard demonstration. Non-lethal settings, please. We're still trying to make friends here. Aye, Captain, came another human voice. Deploying kinetic. Flowers. Setting them to disable only. Admiral Crixtal had no idea what kinetic flowers were, but the name sounded harmless enough. Flowers were pretty, delicate things that grew in gardens. How dangerous could they be? He was about to learn that humans had very different ideas about gardening than the rest of the galaxy. The new horizon moved. Not the way ships normally move through space, but like it was dancing. It flowed between the attacking vessels with impossible grace, never seeming to go very fast, but somehow always being exactly where the alien weapons could not hit it. As it moved, the ship released small objects that looked like geometric sculptures. Made of light and metal? They were actually quite beautiful, blooming into complex patterns that caught and reflected the light from nearby stars. They looked exactly like flowers made of mathematics and physics. Each flower expanded as it moved through space, growing into intricate designs that hurt to look at directly. But they were not just pretty. As they grew, they began to collect things. Loose bolts from ship holes, metal fragments from damaged armor, even cosmic dust and tiny asteroids. The flowers took all of this debris and did something to it that made Admiral Crixtal science officers weep with confusion. They accelerated the material to incredible speeds using principles that the galaxy's best physicists had never imagined. Tiny pieces of metal became projectiles that could punch through battleship armor like it was paper. But the humans were very precise with their impossible weapons. The debris did not destroy the alien ships. Instead, it carefully removed specific components. Weapon systems simply stopped working as their power cores were surgically extracted. Engine cores were disabled without damaging life support. Shield generators were turned off by having their control circuits gently disconnected in 17 minutes. The largest fleet in hegemony history was reduced to 8,000 floating museums. Every ship was completely helpless, but every crew member was alive and unharmed. The humans had turned a massive military force into an elaborate display of disabled technology without killing a single being. Captain Morrison's voice came over the communication system again, still sounding friendly and apologetic. That was us being gentle, Admiral. We really hope we can work this out diplomatically from here. Admiral Crixtal sat in his command chair, staring at the tactical display that showed his entire fleet marked as non-functional. His weapons officer reported that their main guns had been removed so carefully that the computer systems still thought they were there. His engineer said the engines had been disconnected with surgical precision that would have taken his best technicians weeks to accomplish. How? He whispered. Dr. Parker's voice joined the conversation, warm and educational. Like a teacher explaining a simple concept to confused students. Physics is much more cooperative when you understand it properly, Admiral. Matter and energy are just different ways of looking at the same thing. Space and time are more like guidelines than rules. Gravity is basically a suggestion that you can politely decline if you ask correctly. She paused, and Admiral Crixtal could hear the smile in her voice. We've had 3,000 years to figure out how to ask very politely. Lieutenant Ben Wilson, the human weapons officer, added his own explanation. The kinetic flowers are just basic applied engineering, sir. We take whatever's handy, accelerate it using controlled gravitational fields, and apply it with precision guidance systems. It's like throwing rocks, except the rocks are going really fast and know exactly where they want to land. Admiral Krickstall looked around his bridge at his crew. Every alien face showed the same expression of shocked disbelief. They had brought the most powerful fleet in galactic history to capture one human ship, and the humans had disabled them all without even trying hard. "What are you?" he asked quietly. Captain Morrison's answer was simple and honest. "We're just people, Admiral. People who have been away from home for a very long time and have learned some interesting things while we were gone." The New Horizon moved again, positioning itself near Admiral Krickstall's flagship. Up close, the human ship was even more impossible. Its hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Patterns of light moved across its surface in ways that suggested the ship was not just a vehicle, but somehow alive. "The demonstration is over," Captain Morrison announced. "Now we really do need to talk. We have a lot to discuss about rental agreements, property maintenance, and the future of this neighborhood." Admiral Krickstall realized he had no choice. His fleet was helpless, his weapons were gone, and the humans had just proven they could do whatever they wanted with technology that made his civilization look primitive. "What are your terms?" he asked. "Terms? Doctor?" Dr. Parker sounded surprised. "Admiral, we're not conquerors. We're landlords. We want to work out a fair arrangement that benefits everyone. After all, you've been taking care of our property for 3,000 years. That deserves some consideration." As rescue ships began arriving to help the disabled fleet, Admiral Krickstall tried to understand what had just happened. The humans had completely destroyed his military force without hurting anyone. They had demonstrated power beyond imagination while remaining friendly and reasonable. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to genuinely want to negotiate rather than simply take what they wanted by force. The galaxy was about to learn that, sometimes, the most dangerous enemy is the one who would rather be your friend. The negotiations took place on Luna, in a conference room that had been built specifically for the occasion. The humans had constructed it in less than 6 hours, which would have been impossible for any known technology. But then again, the aliens were learning that impossible was a word humans did not seem to understand. Ambassador. Carol Davis led the human delegation with the same calm friendliness that Captain Morrison had shown during the fleet encounter. She sat across from representatives of 12 major galactic civilizations, all of whom looked like they would rather be anywhere else in the universe. "Before we begin," Carol said, pouring herself a cup of coffee from a pot that somehow stayed perfectly hot, "I want everyone to understand something important. We are not here to punish anyone or take revenge for anything. You've been living on our worlds for 3,000 years, and honestly, you have done a pretty good job taking care of them." Admiral Krickstall, who was still trying to understand how his entire fleet had been disabled without a single death, spoke carefully. "What exactly do you want from us?" Carol smiled and activated a holographic display that showed the entire galaxy. Thousands of star systems lit up in blue, marking former human colonies. "We want to work out a fair arrangement. You've been living in our houses, using our roads, mining our asteroids, and farming our planets. That is not necessarily a problem. But we do need to discuss some kind of payment plan." The Zenthari delegate, a nervous being named Yixtaler, raised a shaking hand. "Payment? What kind of payment?" "Nothing too demanding," Carol replied. "We are thinking about a partnership arrangement. You get to keep your homes and continue your civilizations, but humans become silent partners in major decisions. We help with environmental problems, share some technology, and make sure everyone plays nicely with their neighbors."
Dr. Nexwala,
the xenobiologist who had spent her career studying human legends, leaned forward. "What about our governments, our military forces, our independence?" "Keep them," Carol said simply. "We are not interested in running your day-to-day affairs. We have been exploring other galaxies for 3,000 years. We have plenty of our own projects to worry about. But we do want to make sure this neighborhood stays peaceful and prosperous." The terms were surprisingly reasonable. Existing colonies could remain exactly as they were. Governments would continue to operate normally. Military forces could keep their current roles. The only major change was that humans would have what they called advisory positions. In decisions that affected multiple worlds or entire star systems, Ambassador Yilthik of the Hegemony found the courage to ask the question that was bothering everyone. What if we refuse these terms? Colonel Steve Chen, the human military representative, answered with the same casual tone that all humans seem to use. Then we would have to ask you to leave. Politely, of course. We are reasonable people. The alien delegates remembered the Battle of Luna, where human politeness had disabled 8,000 warships without killing anyone. The vote to accept the new arrangements was unanimous, but it was Dr. Nexwala who asked the most important question. Where have you been for 3,000 years? What were you doing while we built our civilizations? Carol's expression became thoughtful, almost sad. We were growing up, learning, exploring beyond the galactic rim, and making contact with civilizations that you have not discovered yet. She gestured toward the viewing window, where Earth hung in space like a blue jewel. The galaxy is a big place, but it is not the only neighborhood in the universe. We have been making friends in other areas. Some of them are planning to visit soon. The implications of those words sent chills through every alien in the room. If humans had spent 3,000 years exploring beyond the galaxy, what had they found? What other species might come calling, expecting to find humans in charge of the local area? What kind of friends? Asked Admiral Crystal quietly. Carol smiled, but there was something in her eyes that made the aliens very uncomfortable. Oh, all kinds. There are the Crystalline Collective from Andromeda, who communicate through controlled gravitational waves and think carbon-based life forms. Are fascinating. The energy dancers from the Magellanic Clouds who exist as pure thought and love to meet species that still use physical bodies, and the builders from the void between, who create entire solar systems as art projects. She paused, watching the alien faces grow pale. They have been hearing stories about our galactic neighbors for quite some time now. Apparently, tales about our quirky alien friends have become quite popular in certain circles. First speaker Zundel, who had remained silent through most of the negotiations, finally spoke. What comes next? Carol's smile grew wider, and for the first time since the humans had returned, she looked genuinely excited. Next, we introduce you to our new neighbors. Some of them are really looking forward to meeting you. The builders especially are curious about species that develop technology using only three-dimensional thinking. Ambassador Yilthik felt his stomach drop. Three-dimensional thinking? Most of our extragalactic friends work in at least 7 dimensions, Colonel Chen explained cheerfully. Some of the really advanced ones use 12 or 15. It is quite impressive once you get used to it. Dr. Parker, who had been quiet during most of the meeting, added her own observation. The interesting thing is that they all want to know about human diplomatic methods. Apparently, our approach to problem-solving has gained quite a reputation in intergalactic circles. What kind of reputation? Dr. Nexula asked, though she was not sure she wanted to know the answer. We are known as the species that can turn any situation into a peaceful negotiation, Carol replied. Other civilizations call us the friendly mediators. They send us their most difficult diplomatic problems because we have a talent for finding solutions that work for everyone. Admiral Crystal thought about his disabled fleet and realized that human mediation was probably very effective. The negotiations concluded with the signing of the Luna Accords, a document that established humans as the senior partners in galactic civilization while allowing existing governments to continue operating. Environmental restoration projects would begin immediately. Cultural exchange programs were mandatory. Aggressive expansion into uncharted space was prohibited. Most importantly, all galactic civilizations would be prepared to meet humanity's extragalactic friends when they arrived for their planned diplomatic visits, as the alien delegates prepared to return to their homeworlds with news of the new arrangement. Carol made one final announcement. Oh, and we should mention that our friends from the Andromeda Galaxy will be arriving next month for a cultural exchange program. They're particularly interested in meeting species that still use physical currency and individual names. Should. be quite educational for everyone involved. The galaxy had spent 3,000 years thinking humans were legends. Now they were about to discover that in the vast darkness between galaxies, humanity had become the species that other species called when they needed help solving impossible problems. The humans were home. They had brought friends. And the universe was about to become much more interesting than anyone had ever imagined.